Alright guys, so still working on the firewall today. This is day 17 of my 30-day thrash to work on the car. I mean, obviously the car's not going to be finished in 30 days, but I'm kind of hoping to have the biggest amount of labor out of the way. But anyway, I just ended up deciding to do a little bit more work on the firewall, just to clean it up, smooth it up a little bit better, change a few things around. But overall, it's still going to look kind of stock. If you can see this plug right here, basically take a piece of sheet metal, which I've got some sheet metal here. It's a little bit surface rusted, but anyway, what I do is I will cut a piece out, that's manageable, a bigger piece, and then I'll hold it up there, and then I'll trace it out on the other side. And I always use a fine tip Sharpie. To me, when you're trying to cut something to a line, the smaller the line, the better the fit. If you use a thick Sharpie and you draw that line, you've got a little bit of, sometimes when you're using a Sharpie, it gets thin and thick. So if you follow that line, you're going to have a wonky line, So I like to use a fine tip Sharpie. It's just, you end up with a better cut, or a better line to cut to. So anyway, this piece here, I cut it out of flat sheet metal, and I use tin snips, just some really old vintage tin snips that are still sharp as hell. I'll cut it out, and it usually looks like a stop sign at that point. So I will use a 2-inch 36 grit Rolock, it's a Blaze, a Norton Blaze. I've mentioned this before. These Norton Blazes are my favorite, and the 2-inch, because you get a 3-inch, and when you put the power to them, they tend to do this as they're running. So you'll end up with deep grind marks in places. So I like the 2-inch because they don't flex and you can control it better. But anyway, Norton Blaze is my favorite because it lasts longer. And another thing, normally when you grind something, you tend to use the outer edge of it, so you'll still have good grit in the middle. So at that point, when the outer edge is done on this thing, I will take tin snips and I will cut, basically make it look like a stop sign, and then you can get more life out of that one disc. And then of course, after that's done, it's time to go to the trash. But anyway, after I cut it out with tin snips, I use that, and I just true it up with that to my Sharpie line. And I've got a magnet on the inside there, holding that plug in there. And then I made one for here as well. And this one here is a little funny. It's basically a rubber bumper, basically, for your battery here, I'm assuming, because there's no grommet or no wires going through it. Anyway, I'm going to fill it. Now this thing is actually dimpled. It's actually pulled in around the edge all the way around. It's made that way. So what I did was I cut out a piece of sheet metal square that's bigger than that, and I had my wife hold it up there, and then I got in on the inside of the car with my fine tip Sharpie, and I went in there to mark it, but I tried to get it up at an angle all the way around like that, to where that Sharpie would be getting way out here instead of doing it exactly straight on, because it would be too small, because this is sunk in on the edges. So what I ended up with when I did that is it's going to be pretty much just about flush now. So I will give you a tip here. If you've got magnets like this, they tend to get shavings all over them and get really furry. You can use your air blower on your air compressor, and it'll blow that stuff right off there. So just blow your magnets off. It'll get all that crap off there. Anyway, I've got that one set up to go on that. So anyway, I guess I'm going to have to go to Tractor Supply across the street and get me some bolts, because I don't have enough bolts to finish for my studs on the inside, if you watched that video yesterday. But today I ended up mocking up my windshield wiper stuff because I found a problem with it. Now this car, when I got it, the wiper transmission itself was in there, but one of the shafts was in here, the other one was gone. Parts of it was inside the car when I cleaned it out, but somebody had bought another one and had it in the car with the cables on it, and they were going to change it. Apparently it broke on them, and they were going to change it. Anyway, I got it out and got to looking, and somebody had drilled the holes out in it, so there was no way to bolt the wiper motor on there. There was no threads in there at all. I did notice on this that this had been pulled out like somebody had used a coarse thread style screw in there, probably to hold the wiper motor down. So I dug through my other stuff here and I got this wiper transmission. This is from my cousin's car because he's going with rain gear. And I also got his electric wiper motor from his car. And this doesn't seem right to me, but this is 1/4 by 20 on the inside hole here. And I always thought these were 1032 on both sides, but I could be wrong. I would have to pull the bolts out of my hardtop to look at it. But anyway, you've got basically 2 holes on each end here. Now in your body on your outside here for your wiper transmission, you have nuts welded into the body right here. These are 1032 thread size. Your 2 outside ones, 1032. So this part, the inside holes right here and here are supposed to be threaded in this. So anyway, when I got to messing with it with my thread checker, it's 1/4 by 20 threads in here. So I just rolled with it. Now the problem was, unless that bolt was about this long, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I ended up drilling the holes bigger here to 1/4 inch. That way the threads of the bolts can go in to the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own gasket for this, and I will actually cut it out exactly the same size as this, because usually when you buy it, it's just the center right here and maybe a gasket for the outside if I remember right. So like on my hardtop, I custom made it, the whole thing as one piece. So that will actually seal where the, this doesn't actually bolt in right here. But anyway, the shaft on this one was a little bit loose. It wasn't terrible. It had a little bit of up and down movement. So I basically took a punch, a sharp-ended punch, and a hammer, just all small stuff, and I put a couple of pins in it. Basically just peened it a little bit, put some little indents in it to get the, it still spins nice, but it took all the slack out of it. So kind of my redneck rebuild there. Now I degreased this in some degreaser and get all the gunk off, because these, if you've ever taken these out of your car, these will be hairy as hell, man. They got fuzzy dust crap all over them. So I cleaned it with a degreaser and a brush and cleaned it up pretty good. And I'll have to go back and sand all this off to paint it silver. But anyway, when I lube this, I will use a dang it, I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. Like a dry lube down in here, so it doesn't attract a lot of dust. But anyway, so I'm glad I mocked this stuff up, because I would have had to I had to drill them holes out so my 1/4 by 20 bolts would go through there. But if you're wanting to know what your outside holes are for that, it's a 1032. What else? I drilled my hole down here for my, this is where my starting harness and my power wire for my distributor, my HEI distributor, will come through right here. So this is a 5/8 inside diameter rubber grommet. Got it from Lowe's. Anyway, it'll go in there like that. I always use a grommet for my wires when they go through firewall or wherever. It's amazing. If you ever go to a car show and you look at cars under the hood, you will see quite a bit people running wires through their firewall without a grommet, and that's just asking for trouble, man. But anyway, so my main harness will go through here. Originally, the starter harness and all that comes out from up here in this hole that I have a plug in, but it comes up across some straps that I removed yesterday, and then it goes down and around. So I will run it basically right across behind the firewall pad through this grommet and down to it. Now I also, on those wires coming down behind that firewall pad, since that is going to be sandwiched between that firewall pad and that metal firewall, I will put some loom on the wires together. That way it'll just make me feel a little bit more at ease of something chafing behind it. But unless there's something really sharp back there, it's probably really not going to. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to loom it. But anyway, my starter harness and the wire going to my HEI will drop out from down here, and when the engine's in, you won't see it. It'll be hidden. So all this up here can be nice and clean and smooth. I'm going to leave the factory hole here for the headlight harness and the speedometer cable. I've got a brand new reproduction one in the package, so I'm just going to leave this one. But anyway, I'm filling that one, and the only thing really that I need to drill for is the cable that actually operates the slide here to turn the wiper motor on and off. It's a metal cable, and it's kind of small. So after I weld this up and smooth it all out, I will drill a new hole in line where that cable will come from off the wiper knob to this. And I'll put a really small rubber grommet on it. It's the way I did my hardtop. So instead of having a big large grommet, it's just going to have a little bitty tiny grommet for the one cable. And the power wire on the wiper motor, I'm actually going to drill the hole right here, somewhere in here, and the wire for the wiper motor will be behind it going into the firewall. That way you don't really see it. I don't really want to run a power wire with a metal cable together through one grommet because that cable could chafe that wire over time. So I'm going to do it like I did my hardtop and just run the wire through here with the grommet. That way it's out of sight, out of mind. The only thing you'll see is the cable. I don't mind the cable so much because the cable to me looks pretty industrial looking, and I just kind of like that look, mechanical look, if you will. But anyway, I got a lot of work to do, man, but I'm going to have to go get some bolts. I don't have enough bolts to finish out everything that I wanted to finish, but anyway, I guess that's it for now. Alright guys, so I'm messing around here with mock-up, trying to figure out what I need to do for my battery cable stuff, because I'm going to be using this 0-gauge amplifier battery cable. I like this stuff for the detail, because you can see through the shielding, you know, it's nice looking, but it is very large. So right now I'm just trying to figure out exactly where I'm going to put it, but I think what I've figured out is I'm going to actually use one of the existing holes here in the firewall right here. I've got this plastic clamp here that's a T-clamp, and I actually drilled it out with a 1/4-inch bit to use a 1/4-inch Allen button head stainless steel bolt here just for detail. I polished it on the buffing wheel a while ago, but anyway, these are two holes here that are pretty much left over. This one here is for the heater box stud, as is this one. So those two are going to stay, but I was trying to figure out which one of these I needed to weld up, and now I know I just need to weld up this one. But I'm going to weld a 1/4x20 square nut on the back side of the firewall back there for this to bolt to, and my battery cable will go into that to, you know, hold it against the body. And I'm thinking about putting another one down here somewhere. So I got to figure that out. I'm gonna have to go look at my hardtop and see whereabouts the starter location is to reference to the firewall, and that way I'll know how far up I need to take that cable. But anyway, I think I got one clamp left. I've got these red ones here, but they're too small of diameter. And in case you want to know, you can get these at Summit. It's Made For You is the brand, but it's called T-clamp. But you know, you'll need to know what size cables you're using first, because they make them with different IDs, inside diameter. Anyway, I think that'll work. So yeah, I've got my square nuts here. I usually get these at Lowe's. They're just square steel nuts. They're CAD plated. Of course, I'll run a bolt down on that just a little bit, and that way the bolt holds it in place, and I'll take it to the wire wheel on my bench grinder, get the CAD coating off of it so you can weld it. But anyway, I get these at Lowe's, and it seems like they're only like a couple of bucks for a 4-pack. So anyway, I'm going to weld one of those in there. It may end up being two, but I'll just have to get in there and look. I'm going to have to look at the hardtop first. But anyway, more mock-up. I got the square nuts welded in. My bolts are a little long. I'm gonna have to, I think I'll just cut these down. But anyway, so there it is. Clamped to the firewall, one there and one there. So then this will basically go about like that to go to the starter. So I think it'll end up looking pretty nice. It is a little detailed. I kind of like that. So the ground, I guess I'll leave the factory ground one where it is, but I'm thinking I could actually move it over a little bit and put a bigger nut in there, because these are 0 gauge lugs that I've got to solder on here. And you know, the 0 gauge lugs, they usually have pretty large holes for your bolts. So I may end up going a little bit further over, because I want these both to be, you know, side by side, right in the middle, and then Y over to the battery clamps like that, so it'd be even looking. I like that stuff to be detailed like that. Anyway, that was a lot of work for that, but you know, it'll all be worth it in the end, man. It's all about the details. All right, guys, so got the nuts welded in down there, welded up this hole here, which I still got some spots visible around there, but that was dimpled in, so it's kind of hard to get pretty much fully ground flat. But I could go in there and finish it up with the welder more, but I think it's good enough. This one turned out really, really nice. So that is no longer there. So now I need to bolt in the wiper transmission, the wiper motor, get the cable, kind of figure out which direction the cable needs to go in to where it's a lot straighter and nicer, and then I'll drill a small hole with a little tiny rubber grommet just for the cable. So it is coming along. Yep. Man, I am wore out, man. It's probably about, I don't know, 6 p.m. maybe on Saturday. So I finished up the patch on the battery box bottom, and this battery box lid that I had 4 holes drilled in it. So I welded in nail heads in there and ground it down and finished it off there a little bit. I think I'm going to use bed liner on this and on the bottom only of the battery box. I'm going to paint the sides semi-gloss black. So I'll end up looking pretty nice and not have to really spend any money. Right now I'm going to finish cleaning up my mess, use the leaf blower and blow all this metal dust out that way in the grass. So anyway, thanks for watching.